Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Peer, Charlotte Street's first online artist spotlight series. We've invited 3 artists at different stages in their career, and this will be a monthly event. And eventually in the summer, it'll go in person in our new library, which we're super excited about. But tonight we have Patricia Bordallo Dibildox, Jonah Criswell, and Miguel Rivera, and each of them actively show here in Kansas City and beyond. They all actually happen to be employed at the Art Institute at some points, teachers as well, which is fantastic. So anyways, the way this will run for Peer tonight, each artist has been asked to create basically a Pecha Kucha 5-minute presentation, and they're going to give a little commentary narrative over that. So it's going to go very fast, and then we'll have a little time for a little Q&A between all of them, so you can get to know a little bit more about that. So I think with that, we'll probably just kind of get going. And first up is Patricia.
As an immigrant and artist, documenting myself and the world around me as the years go by has always felt really important. Self-portraiture has always been a great part of my practice. This image I took on a pit stop driving through the Flint Hills so that I could gather some goldenrod that I would later use to dye some fabric with. This image is of when I went to Teotitlán del Valle, which is a city in Oaxaca in Mexico where I am from. I got the opportunity to learn about natural dyeing from a Zapotec family, and it's by far one of the most beautiful learning experiences I've ever had, and it helped me connect to the practice of natural dyeing in a really sacred way. I made this quilt in 2019, and it's naturally dyed and stuffed with milkweed silk. I was having a lot of conversations and doing research on how to give back to the plants whenever they're giving us these really beautiful colors and textiles to work with. So I was thinking a lot about closed loop sustainability when it comes to my own art practice, and I continue to carry that through today. When the world gets real busy for me, I do like to keep my sewing practice active by making smaller objects such as these pillows. The fabric that fills them is usually donated to me by a local organization so that I'm repurposing materials for them, and I try to naturally dye them. This one that is shown is actually hand embroidered as well, which I really love to do when I am able to. In 2018, my good friend and collaborator Jahaira Aguilar and I received Friend Space as an organization. We ran it as a gallery for a year in the Crossroads, where it had been for 9 years before us, before choosing electing to leave because of rising rent costs. And through the last year and a half that we've been out of the space, we've been thinking about how to carry that project forward. There's been a lot of mutual aid. Recently, we've been having small gatherings between our pandemic pod to cook and talk through ways that we can carry this energy that we have. Our platform, I feel like, has a lot of potential to keep growing in a way that isn't just art specific, but caters to the needs of our community. So we're looking ahead in that direction. This is from one of our recent group leadership dinners, which included Juan Carlos Franco, who is another co-director now. He came on last year as part of our team, so I'm pretty excited about what the future of Friend Space holds. Definitely lots to come. Right now, I'm actually in New York State, upstate New York, with my friend Sinjin, who is the proud owner of this really beautiful Victorian home. in Cobleskill, New York. And she is turning it into an artist residency and nonprofit. And I am serving on the board of that nonprofit. So we're working to formalize the artist residency. I drove from Kansas City and I'm spending 2 weeks here to make a quilt, which is the fabric of it is pictured here. The majority of it is naturally dyed. Some of the yellow fabric that you see here was purchased. But yeah, we're working to establish a space in upstate New York for artists to be able to come and spend time and challenge themselves and explore aspects of their work that they might not have been able to beforehand. Lastly, I wanted to share with you some old work. The piece on the left was made in 2016 with the help of Charlotte Street and Mobank. The piece on the right was made for a show in Adelaide, Australia, and I made different iterations of these balloons. I have been thinking over the last 2 years on how to carry this work through in a sustainable way, so that's kind of what I'm looking ahead to in my practice right now.
Thank you so much, Patricia. That was really lovely. Next up is we have Jonah Criswell, and he's been here in Kansas City for a minute. His name is always, as someone I run on the studio residency, he's always asked as a potential mentor. So he must be doing something right, I guess, because it's always there. So I'm going to let him do all the intro parts for their presentations. But thank you for being here, Jonah.
Hi, my name is Jonah Criswell. I'm an artist based in Kansas City, and I teach at the Kansas City Art Institute, and I want to show you what I've been up to. In March, I bought some Crayola markers and started for the next 3 months making a drawing every night. I felt it was really important for me to record my psychological and emotional response to the world as it was changing. I'm still doing these drawings, but at the same time, they don't have the same pace because I'm making other works, which I'm going to talk about later on. But the everyday became something that of a main subject matter for this work. And the everyday involves falling asleep on the sofa. It involves making coffee. It's, for me, it's one story amongst a lot of other people's stories. So these drawings really functioned for me as a record, and they're sort of primarily for me to see my life. Sometimes that life is watching horror movies and eating pizza with your 3 cats. Sometimes it is staying up late and worrying. Sometimes it is avoiding any form of news media. And sometimes it's going outside and protesting and mourning. The world became hypnotic and surreal, and it stayed that way. And those things deeply affect me. The way in which you can step outside and the world feels different even though nothing looks like it's changed. And I wanted to reflect that through intensity and through color and through line and through these sort of psychedelic and it remains a really intense emotional experience that is important for me to present, at least to myself, but hopefully to other people. When I was making paintings, I was trying to learn from these drawings. I was trying to learn about saturation and line. So there was so much work done for those first 3 months that I felt like, there's a lot that I can learn from this practice. So I was making small paintings, 8 by 10, 9 by 12, and really trying to pare things down. At the same time, I was doing construction cutouts. One of the last times I was out in public was before we sheltered in place was going to Scraps Casey and buying some construction paper. And I really enjoyed the tactile quality of making these things. But I also really like that they have similar constraints to the marker drawings. Marker box has like 12 to 24 colors. Here you have 2 pieces of paper. And how do you make an image? Those challenges are really fun. They're really exciting. And, they can be really healthy as a distraction. This drawing is about me realizing one day that I could just get in the car and drive in a direction for 20 minutes and then turn around and drive back. And that that feeds my need to get outside of the house without interacting with anyone in a way that puts us in jeopardy. The interior is a subject matter that I return to repeatedly in these works, and it's just amazing at how surreal the interior is, how it changes your intimacy with your surroundings, warp the everyday and the familiar to where a tabletop can feel architectural, where your paranoia can dissipate by walking into a different room and sitting down and drawing or cooking or things like that. So a lot of this work was really thinking about that emotional life and using constraints to create creative responses to it. And now I've moved on, or I'm continuing the Crayola markers and stuff like that, but I'm making these pieces because normally in my studio, I'll make a painting, I'll get really excited about it, and then the next day I'll set it to the side and make another thing and then come back to it. So there's all these unfinished things in my studio, and I thought to myself, how can I collaborate with them in that state of being unfinished? So I've been building these little armatures, and I really don't know where these works are going, but I'm really excited about combining these two ways of thinking, of the collage and the cut paper with something that's tactile and made but still kind of unfinished. Well, thank you for letting me talk to you about my work, and good luck.
Thank you so much. That was great. Great use of everydays. Next up, we have Miguel Rivera. Miguel originally was studied in Mexico, then came up to Kansas City, right, in 2008. And he's head of the printmaking department over there. Again, a very popular name. We see Charlotte Street sees his name quite a bit in reference when students apply for the studio residency and things like that. So we're excited to have him here as well to share. So take it away, Miguel.
Thank you, Pat. Thanks everybody for being here tonight. So we can just share the video. I'm gonna be talking over my presentation. So as I said before, my name is Miguel Rivera. I consider myself a cultural ambassador and an intellectual or curious person just looking around. Can we play that? Thank you. So I'm gonna be talking about my latest work, which kind of started, pivoted 3 years ago when I started to work seriously at Studio Sync. Great opportunity, and I encourage you to apply if you can. So I'm happy to share, something that I've been discovering now that I'm working more and more in Kansas City. So this is something that is still evolving. I don't think this is quite resolved, but it leaves me some platform to keep instigating new ways to keep working. So for example, Arches of Idiosyncrasy is this type of work that I started to discover because I was exhausted making images without really knowing what I wanted to do with them. So it was a trip that I took to Mexico, also to Oaxaca, like Patricia. And then I did rediscover part of something that I've been thinking about is, the term identity that we use over and over. To me, didn't mean much because I think I wasn't sharing the same experiences with my peers from Mexico. Nevertheless, I started to dig more deeply into history, and I started to gravitate towards the use of maps. And these maps that we take for granted, that we think they're numbers and vectors on a piece of paper. To me, they start to symbolize this power, the power that we see that we never question, and it's the power of knowledge, a power that was basically brought to Mexico and South America by Spanish people. They carry this magical knowledge of drawing and data, and I started to gravitate towards that. So I started to use these maps, and I started to move them around, and then it started to join dots in the map, and I started to follow the routes. that they follow, and the routes that I keep following myself, moving from my point A to point B, which took me back to the history of viruses. And I wasn't thinking about H1 and the current virus of COVID. I was thinking of the H1N1, and I started to follow the Black Plague ever since 2010, and that took me to Venice. So I started to make these routes on maps, and then combining them with images of architecture. So this is the last work. This is something that I keep thinking more and more seriously. How can I represent something that is invisible, the invisible forces that we always think that represent human condition, and also the history of migration. So that's something that I'm really concerned about. I keep thinking, if I were to present a color to describe a force, then I would keep thinking of these dark colors, what it was like to navigate at night for sailors that didn't know how to read or write, but they could read the stars. And I also like to look at the current maps of the area that I know. So to me, it's very important to be in the place, know the place, and then take that experience and then give it color, give it shapes. And some of these shapes I don't have a specific aesthetic choice for them. They just happen to transform or to be the result of this path, or this sense of discovery that I keep finding in my work. Like this piece is based on the Oregon Trail. I live in Oregon, so I ended up in Kansas City. So it's like going backwards, and I did keeping track of all these forces that I always think that they're prevalent. And also I have to commend I think I'm privileged, like some of us working at KCAI, because he allows me to have access to tools that I didn't have before. So working with lasers, working with routers, now it kind of expanded exponentially my ability to make these images that I dreamed about before, but I couldn't really quite draw, because I think I wasn't in my hand what I was chasing. I was actually chasing the idea of using data, using, pre-recorded information on vector technology to come up with something, to me, since I discovered something new. So, and this is the last piece that I was able to integrate to the Kemper Museum of Art in the permanent collection. And it kind of represents actually, the sense of architecture, the architecture of viruses, in this case, the Black Plague that I traced onto these images, and also the sense of chaos that we all live through, and especially in COVID times.
Miguel, thank you so much. It's really
Thank
beautiful,
you.
really beautiful work, and it's nice to get to see that even on a screen as well. So I look forward to seeing that up at the Kemper someday when I can get out there. Thank you.
Sure do. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you guys all did a great job. Again, we know this is a little awkward, but I think this is great. Just I'm impressed just of all you've been doing and sharing. It makes me want to get in the studio. I was thinking now maybe it'd be good, since it's called Peer, potentially maybe each of you have artists have something you'd like to ask the other artist. Again, this can be brief. We only have 6 minutes, which is crazy. This goes so fast. But did any of you participating have any questions you wanted to ask one of the other artists? Miguel?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, Jonah and Patricia, what makes you happy? And if being happy nowadays is important to you.
Patricia, you want to go first?
Sure. Was it what makes me happy and if that matters? Was that the question? That's that's difficult. I mean, I feel like right now, if I'm being honest, it's been a hard year to feel happiness. And I think I have learned to not prioritize it. Like, I feel like that is a poignant question, because I think I'm not at a place in my life where portraying myself as, like happy is important rather than just like surviving and focusing on things that matter, which a lot of times don't cause happiness. So that is where I'm at. I mean, I think right now spending time outside, sunshine, being with my dog, selling, like I feel like those things better my everyday life.
Yeah, I want to echo some of what you say, Patricia. I think happy feels like a too abstract a state of being. I'm joyful and I'm afraid and I'm concerned and I'm rested, you know, like it. I think that there's my emotional state is really transitory. And I think that there are grounding forces, you know, friends, my cats, distractions that allow me to be healthy, but happy is elusive.
Thank you. Jonah, do you have any questions you want to ask Miguel?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Patricia, like the opening thing you say is the importance of self-portraiture as an immigrant and as a person who is generating their story. And that first photograph, I think, is a really beautiful thing because we're looking at you look at something else in the distance. I think part of it is that kind of photography something that you took with you from your family or from a key member in your family, like that idea of recording your life so that you can see it and gain clarity?
That's a great question. My dad was I would say both my parents. My mom studied graphic design and worked at a camera, like a processing film shop and camera shop for a long time, but she's not really a photographer, although she did have like a hand in photo life stuff. My dad is like a hobbyist in photography, and he gave me my first camera. My parents bought me my first camera when I was 9, and since I was really small, we traveled a lot. My dad's always traveled my whole life for his job, so there's always been a lot of like documentation of my life through my dad's and my mom's like lenses, literally, when we traveled. So when I got my first camera, I already really felt the importance of like I knew how much it mattered for me to see those like prints and the film negatives. Like I just spent so much time with our family albums, and we were fortunate enough to have pictures of like my grandparents when they traveled and like their parents. So I just from a really young age like loved seeing photographs, and I think I just like knew that it mattered that I documented stuff. The problem was that I didn't have my own camera and my parents did not want to let me use theirs. So I remember I got a super cheap, tiny, crappy digital camera for my 8th birthday, and for my 9th year Christmas. Oh my gosh, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. It's been a long day. When I was 9 for Christmas, I got that camera, and from then on, I mean, I've documented everything in my life. I have like I think 80,000 pictures on my phone. I'm not kidding. Yeah, it's wild, but I take pictures of everything, and obviously now it's shifted to like cell phone cameras a lot because of convenience, and just my art practice isn't like solely photography anymore, but it just feels really important.
Well, there's something factual about your work and the different professional roles that you've occupied, and I think that there's a connective tissue there that I really respect, because a lot of my love of picture making comes from like seeing something and not wanting to lose it.
Yeah.
And that photograph, I was like, oh man, what a great image, you know? So thanks for answering that question.
Yeah, thank you.
Patricia,
I'll ask one.
Yeah.
I'll ask Miguel first. I thought it was neat that we both talked about Oaxaca, because I'm not from there. Somebody just asked me if I'm from Oaxaca. I'm actually from San Luis Potosí, which is central Mexico. Oaxaca is way down south. Yeah. But I was also intrigued because I saw this. I also lived in Venice in Italy for a while. So I mean, there was like this thread that I was following and a really like, I guess I just wanted to expand, or Miguel to expand, why those places, like why Oaxaca, and then also why, I know you mentioned you followed the like virus back to Venice. So if you could just talk about the importance of those places.
Yeah, thank you. Well, actually, I was reading this book called 1493, and it was basically the history of the Americas after Columbus arrived, and then the spiral that developed after that, and then he was talking about colors, and of the produce, silver, gold, potatoes, tomatoes, everything that that was taken from the Americas to develop Europe, and then how the colors in Europe changed after they found that they had peacocks, like feathers. That to me that wasn't really interesting, and the counterpoint of that is also the history of viruses that I've been from Mexico back in 2010. I think there was the swine flu. So all of a sudden I had to carry this stigma, the virus come from bad countries. So I started to retro engineer this segment, and I ended up following one of the first viruses, and actually happened to be the Black Plague. So that's what I decided to go there and see the history, and then collect, images, photographs of the places where all of these events happen, and how, this like this domino effect that is now affecting our cultures.
Cool.
Could I ask, what was the book called again? The
1493.
1493.
And there's a new one, 1491, that goes back from the 92 all the way back. It's by Charles Mann.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, like I said, this goes so fast, you all. I could sit here and listen to you guys talk. I would definitely recommend we do this again in person sometime. Thank you so much. I'm trying to put everybody's websites on here too, so that you can find them down the road as well. And do want to encourage you to, Hope, can you find Patricia so I can finish talking? Thank you. Just encourage you all to take some time and see what's going on out there in the world, in this community, with your other fellow artists. I think just checking in like this is important right now, and I think we're all kind of needing some conversation and I don't know, distraction. But this has helped my whole week, just seeing this stuff. So thank you so much for sharing, and I sure am looking forward to having you join us in the new space that we have, and hopefully this summer we'll see you there. But otherwise, please stick around on the Facebook page and be looking for all of our other coming events. There'll be more and more series online this spring, and we're so excited to see your faces and names out there. So again, thank you so much for being a part of this, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You all.